everything that you're watching, including this video, is a message.
Critically analyzing the messages which are put out, the first step you can do is to question it. Why?
I hardly find there are youth or politicians, who are interested or who are coming to the forefront.
It was interesting to find a first-time voter who is still in college.
I'm a first-time voter too, and it was a very hectic process, and I ended up going physically.
The environment I see around me and how I want to see a change in it.
We all know for a fact that no a person or a political party is here for only the good of the people.
People who are privileged, who are in the 1%, so to say, don't vote. They choose not to vote.
I don't know, it's so sad and unfortunate that as journalists we'll be targeted tomorrow, and we have been seen a pattern, so on so forth. So how do I question? When do I question?
Hi everyone, I'm Kessa Hagar, and my peers at Sophia College and I have gathered here to discuss the 2024 general elections. Now that the elections have officially commenced, we, as members of the Gen Z community, had questions regarding the same. So, I'll start by taking a quick poll. How many of you here will be voting? And what kind of issues are you concerned with?
Pressing issue that has been overlooked is the public health crisis. I feel that even in a city like Mumbai, where it is known to be a home of the billionaires, there is a side which there's a side of the public health services here which is booming with these people, underprivileged people who do not have the basic healthcare facilities available there, and that has been overlooked by both by all the parties in their manifestos. That hasn't been addressed, and that is a pressing issue. I feel it should be looked at.
Unemployment as the youth of the country is one of the biggest reasons and should be one of the biggest agendas for elections. I think we pride ourselves over the fact that we have the biggest youth population in the world, but we don't see them growing and flourishing the way other more developed countries are doing. Mostly the reason is unemployment and lack of equal distribution of resources, be it public health or be it education, be it anything like that. I think more skill-based courses are required. We are done and dusted with rote learning and just very theoretical based courses. I think if you're not teaching practical application of any particular theory, then there's no point, because in the end we are looking out for employment. On the other hand, I would also like to add the fact that education in itself should not just be pertaining to employment, right? I don't just want to work, study this thing because I want to get a job in it. I should also study this to open my mind, to open my horizon in the sense of wisdom and knowledge. So that should also be the emphasis.
So I had a question. Ideally, what should the process of selection of election commissioners look like? That's one of my questions. And anybody else?
Yeah, by no means the last system for election commissioners was perfect, but at the same time, right now, the way the system is, it's not neutral, just to say the least, and like, it is more faulty, I guess, than the previous system, but at the same time, both of them are not preferred choices, and there should have been a much better way to find an election commissioner, selection process should have been more different, thorough, and not prone to bias as this one is.
So I would like to address your second question as to, what are the things that the election commissioner should be looking into when it comes to selection of political parties and so on. So I think the first thing that we really need as a nation of, almost so many crores of people is that we require politicians who have some knowledge. So whether you're looking at the public sector to, public health sector to do better, or the education system to do better, we require people who are educated, who have the knowledge and understanding of the workings of the world to be there. We cannot have people who are just talking on the basis of information that they have and building stories based on past and stuff like that. It has to be something which is in collaboration with the present times and what's going on at this point in time. I think another issue that we have to address as citizens in the country is concretization. You all have seen what's the condition of Bangalore, and many more cities will soon follow this. If we don't take care of the environment and we don't put it up as a pressing issue as a part of our public manifesto, because we've seen air pollution in winters, we've seen shortage of rain, we've seen floods at places which were earlier lands which were facing drought. So these all things also have to be addressed by election commissioners and by the political parties, by the politicians, so that it helps in creating a better space for the future, because that's exactly what we do when we vote, right? That we are creating a future for the next 5 years by the person who comes into power. So that's something which is the responsibility of every voter when they are selecting their politicians. And that will only come from someone who has knowledge, because if they don't have this background knowledge, then definitely it's not going to work. Once they are in power, then they just continue doing what they have been doing over the last few years.
The flood has now become basically an annual thing that happens, and like extreme weather events have become an annual thing. So sustainable infrastructure doesn't seem, especially in hilly areas, also in urban cities like Bombay, the sustainable infrastructure, I don't see it has become priority pretty much anywhere, whichever government there was. And it has only got worse with more urbanization, also in hilly areas, like how, because of the way geography works, it affects them the worst, and people who are at sea level. And so it's like sustainable infrastructure should be one of the priority issues also, I think. Because Mumbai, as we know, a lot of it will go underwater as the decades go on. So that's, as a citizen of Mumbai, I feel that is also a main issue for us.
Another question that I had is that do you think that films and popular media, they affect the psyche of voters, specifically young voters?
Definitely it does, because at the end of the day, whatever we consume is what we become, right? So like right from childhood, we've been trained, that parents should not just be the ones who preach, they should be the ones who do the same actions that they want their kids to follow. So it's the same thing, because, and that's how the entire system of indoctrination starts, right? Because that's the medium which people are consuming the most. And if in that you see a particular message being passed across throughout, and at every platform, at every level, then that's going to be what you are going to, select or choose. Because if an A person is not considered to be capable of doing something, even he or she is trying his best to do something or put out his opinions and viewpoints and highlight what are the negatives, but that person has always been put down, then definitely that's what the people are going to see. It's just that way, right? And people by nature are fickle-minded, right? So we are only going to see what is popularized and what is, given that kind of a stage and platform and that kind of a viewership. So that's definitely going to happen, and it's going to impact the voters who are going to vote for the first time. So wise voting is essential, and that wisdom only comes with education and as everything that my peers mentioned.
I do feel that films do have a lot of impact on the people, and they are a medium of communicating with the masses, because film is a medium that is consumed by the both by the privileged, the underprivileged, and it's a mass communication medium. So in that sense, yes, definitely films do have an influence on people, and when you need to communicate a certain message to them, the spectacle of this cinematic spectacle that films are, with the say the music, the dialogues, it all just amplifies their message, and whatsoever that message is, it just influences the people in a way that they get those goosebumps and are like, yeah, I mean, it does influence them. So
I think films have always been a tool of, pushing the agenda, right from like freedom struggle times. Films, always have a flavor of what's happening in politics and in the nation at large. So I think not everyone is as privileged as us to know that agenda is being pushed also. When they're watching a film, it's mainly for entertainment. They don't know, or they might not be aware that, okay, if a certain slogan is being put out or a certain color is being shown, what does it actually mean? What is it doing to your psyche? But it affects you a lot, because you remember that scene, you remember that color, you remember that slogan, and then later when you are voting, that comes to your mind. Rest of the things around you won't matter that much. So that much of an impact films have. And always films give you a world of aspiration, something that you want to be, something larger than life that you want to be a part of. So in that way, then that affects your psyche in the sense that you start thinking that, oh, this is something, that like India is doing great at the moment. India is doing so, it's become a global sensation. But when you stay in India and you see the issues, the situation is completely different.
A sub-part also of that is youth ambassadors, national icons who are also sort of playing a role in, the election commission has some like Sachin Tendulkar, Rajkumar Rao, and all of these people. So when celebrities and, such national icons, so to say, also come on board, and sort of, because you're seeing them in local trains, you're seeing their advertisements coming, and election is coming on, so they are asking you to vote. So that also sort of definitely influences you, and also influences on social media. Now you can't differentiate between what is cinema, what is social media, who is a content creator, who is an actor. Everyone's playing a reverse role altogether here. So I think that also, to an extent, now a lot of people who are sort of that, no, I know what to do, will stay away from it. But a lot of people who, like for Gen Z, they are constantly there on Instagram. So when they are seeing someone like important actors who are playing roles of significant personalities in their biopics and so on, so maybe you are not going for certain agendas, but you are going for that particular person to just see the performance and so on. But again, in your subconscious, some seed is actually planted in a way. So that sort of plays out a lot. And I think recently, if we want to face it or we don't want to face it, but across the board, just during elections, there have been back-to-back films that are coming out, sort of pushing the agenda in some way or the other. And also, when you always, in cinema, you look out for the hero, someone is glorified. And also as representatives, you want someone who's strong in the personality, and that is where you want to go ahead and vote. If you don't know your representatives well, that is also another problem, when you don't know who to vote for. But then you see, okay, some strong personalities are being put out constantly out there. So I think that also, that way films and mediums like social media come into play.
On the media thing, like the media literacy is a thing that should be, I think, explored by whoever comes into power. And like, because like I think Zoya Tanushree said, people sometimes what they say is what they believe, but they don't get how they should have a filtration system. Like what they see is not necessarily always true. How you trust but verify stuff. So media literacy is increasingly becoming a big part, and will have a more prominent role as we are in the communication world. Like it should not be only because we are in a communication course, that's why we know shouldn't be a privileged thing like that. Like it should be more common and more commonly taught even in schools at younger ages, because at youngest ages people are exposed to social media, movies. So general media literacy will help ensure a lot of let's say BS doesn't fall. People are able to filter it out.
What media literacy actually means for people who are not into media, unlike us, is just that everything, this is just, I wanted to say to whoever is watching this, is that everything that you're watching, including this video, is a message. They are communicating something to you. We are communicating something to you right now when we are saying this. So you have to be very aware when you consume media, when you consume a WhatsApp forward, when you consume a video on YouTube, when you see an ad on Google, when you see anything that is giving you any information, has a message. They are not just putting things for fun or for drama, for film also. They are giving you a message. You have to understand and know on your own if that message is working well for you or not.
So, a thing that media literacy entails, I think many of us, since we are media students, we know what cinematic liberty is. But people, again, this is a luxury for us, for others, but mm, people don't know what cinematic liberty is. So, sometimes facts are played with, they're exaggerated or they're downplayed. And people tend to take those facts on a surface level, on their face value. I think it's high time that we introduced separate separate subject of media literacy in schools, so that we know what cinematic liberty is. How do you discern from, I don't know, propaganda or actual messaging, information, facts, and fiction. So that's about it. And
I would just like to add one more thing, that whatever you consume as an aware citizen, you should question. You should ask, why is this being put out and why now? So critically analyzing the messages which are put out, the first step you can do is to question it. Why are they doing it and why now?
So, speaking of youth leaders, do you think that they are doing enough to reach out to the youth of the country? Are they bridging the gap between the party and the voter bank?
So, if you're looking at the youth, I think as far as our political parties are concerned, I hardly find there are youth politicians, who are interested or who are coming to the forefront for the time of the election, or even to put forward the party's political manifesto. And even if there are a few youth people, it's because, as I mentioned, what's coming down, whether it's maybe lineage in terms of political party, or whether it's the old leaders or the leaders which have already been in existence and don't want to leave power. So there's not opportunity for people or for the youth to be incorporated in any political party. And another thing is, I think so far what I have seen in the last 15 years, because I have voted for so far 2 general elections, and I have realized in the last 15 years that, people don't want to enter politics, because politics has now more or less become a place wherein you have to be aligned to a party's agenda more than being aligned to the country's well-being. And that wasn't the case during, our freedom struggle. People were not aligned to parties' agendas, they were aligned to what was good for the nation. So the term patriotism, or the term anti-national, has been very much misrepresented and misused in the last few years in the nation. And that's the reason why, even as a citizen, sometimes you feel that, even by exercising your right to vote, are you being an anti-national or are you being patriotic? Sometimes I question myself that if I am getting someone to power, if my vote counts, which does definitely count, and if I'm getting someone to power, is that person going to do something good for my nation, or will not do something good for my nation? And when I say my nation, it's not just the image of my nation in the media outside, but it's what my people want in the nation. The social crisis that we are facing every day, day in and day out. And sometimes we feel we are not progressing, but we are digressing in the 21st century, which is wrong. So youth require to be there, but unfortunately, I don't find that there's a lot of youth representation even this time in the 2024 elections.
I think the way the system is made, it's like it's not incentivizing. It is kind of incentivizing. If you are a youth if you are a youth and you have resources, then you can of course make it. But there are, if you became a media sensation at one point of time, then you are able to catapult on that and make it. That's one thing. But the way the system will function, and the way at the age you can fight for a seat, is like much older. So at that point, for a Lok Sabha type election, it is far too in their middle ages. I think that's why also by system and its inherent nature from the very beginning, it was not very youth friendly that way. even though they are youth leaders, but they get seen much more later on in life, I feel, even if they are. So that's why I feel there is a lack, and that is a thing that I think should be fixed.
I found certain things quite interesting and differently while I was reporting on this topic. It happened so. When I went to interview some of the youth representatives in the city, it was interesting to find a first-time voter who is still in college has joined as the secretary of this particular representative in that particular place. And it happened in 2 places as such. So I saw that there was active participation. And how did that happen is because these representatives were interacting and doing debates in their colleges and so on to interest them irrespective that, you come join. And these are the things that we are doing, the campaigns that they are doing. How are they putting up campaigns of first-time voters? How do you register? What are the apps that you are using and so on? Because it's very important, because online registration, to just register yourself, to get your voter ID is a hectic process, online itself. A lot of people still say that, okay, मैं कुछ दूर जाके I'll rather do a physical one because I'll be assured that I'll get the voter ID. That's how I got mine. So it is also essential to understand that when youth representatives, when they actively do something for the youth, there's a sort of interest, and that's how they want to join and also be a part. That okay, I am interested, I align with the representative, whatever, and I want to do something for the community. On the other hand, for organizations like Young India Foundation, Mark Your Presence, also I interacted with the founder of Mark Your Presence, Chaitanya Prabhu. They have been doing a lot of active work. By Kala Ghoda Arts Festival happened this year. There was an installation done by Mark Your Presence. So generating awareness is so important, and that's how you start bridging the gap. Just very little in education, road track clubs, interacting with them, having certain things in college, having events. Similarly for Young India Foundation, it's mostly based in Delhi. Things happen there. So they do this Get Inked, hashtag Get Inked sort of campaign, where they are just nothing. They have their stalls at music festivals that are happening in college. Everyone's there. First-time voters are there in all these college fests. So when you start doing that, it's in a fun way. You just collaborate, and your youth representatives can be present there. You're not pushing an agenda, you're not doing anything, you're just saying, come start voting, it's essential, you need to vote. Your vote shouldn't go wasted in a nota, so to say. So I think this way, interestingly, I found out that active participation is happening. A sort of gap is, that bridging of gap is happening through social media and through such organizations in some way or the other. But I think still there's a lot more to happen so that more information is given for registration process and so on.
Definitely. So like you mentioned about the online registration process, I'm a first-time voter too, and it was a very hectic process, and I ended up going physically. And like Fatima mentioned, we definitely need new blood in the parliament, preferably without any involvement of existing political progeny or pedigree. That brings me to the question that are your political opinions and choices yours, or are they affected by the political choices and opinions of your parents or families?
So I personally don't follow what my family follows in terms of political opinion, or maybe what my community also tells me in terms of political opinion. But I follow what I am not only seeing by the popular media, but also what we get to know through people who are actually working in the, in the indigenous part of the country, and what are the incidences that are coming up which are not even being highlighted in the popular media. So that definitely affects my choices. And also we all know for a fact that no a person or a political party is here for only the good of the people. Everyone has hidden agendas and hidden politics behind the entire process of whatever they are, putting forward in their manifestos. But it's up to us to make a wise choice. It's like, it's between the devil and the deep blue sea kind of a thing. So you make a choice, and you have to know that which is the one devil that you want to be, having as the face of your nation, is what I would like to say. But because that's how it is actually, not only in India, but globally, as far as politics is concerned. I think we all experience politics in every aspect of our life, whether it's something as small as a family or a friendship, or whether it's a work area. Everywhere there is politics. So politics as a term is there, existing everywhere. But yes, for a nation, it's a big thing, because everything of the nation depends upon the person or the party that is the ruling party for the country, and they have 5 years in hand. So that's exactly what we need to do. But
I was recently speaking to a first-time voter. She's yet to get her voter ID, but she comes from a place which is quite politically active, and also has family members who've been involved in those conversations and political aspects and so on so forth in that locality and so on. So. And definitely, so that shapes what she is also thinking, in the process of growing up and so on. But, and now I come from Bengal, which something or the other has always been happening there. In colleges, outside colleges, you're sitting for a cup of chai, politics is there, you're talking about what is going to happen, anything can change. And similarly at home, there are conversations happening. Parents are talking about things and what they are feeling, what I'm feeling. But what I've learned with time is to also question their choices. I think that is something also important, that you don't argue with people at all, irrespective of how are they related to you, but you just question, okay, why? But these are the things, these are my facts, these are what I am feeling. And also a lot of times your choices are disregarded because, acha, tum to abhi tak bade nahi hue ho. You are someone who will, tum jitne bhi bade ho jao, you've got your voter ID and all of that, but still you're like, no, but okay, they dismiss your choices on that ground. So that's how you also feel a little, okay, then does my vote matter? Does my thing matter? And so on and so forth.
I don't feel like we have a lot of options to choose from, like which political party we want. We don't have a very big platter when I say this. And B, now while doing a research for a project, I came to know now people are actually going for the negative approach. In the sense that, okay, I know this X party is bad, it's not good for our country, but Y party is much worse. So let me go and vote for the X party. So that is the approach that the youth is taking right now. And also the fact that people are not very aware of what nota is. The minute you say, okay, if you don't want to vote for a particular party, you can go and click on nota. And they're like, if our vote is not countable and it doesn't make any sense, then why should we go and vote nota? So I think education in that term is very important, because we will be able to make a more, unified, better opinion, whom to vote, and what all the options are there for us.
How nota affects voting, ki like if nota has the majority vote, how does that affect that? A lot of people in our age also don't know, even if they are in media or not. Generally, as far as I know, and I could be at the same point, I'm not sure, ki if nota is the majority vote, it's not like a re-election happens. Still the candidate with the most vote wins after nota. So ऐसा नहीं कि so even I'm not sure. So that's how widespread, like उतना knowledge नहीं नोटा के बारे में. Even though I've voted nota once in my life, so like even I'm not sure. So like would she's knowledge more prevalent होनी चाहिए?
I think like for the question that you asked about my voting behavior, it's very different from my parents. My parents have sort of now, they're like, oh, we've seen governments after governments, and now they almost don't vote. Rather, I am more aware, and I want to at least have that hope that, okay, maybe my vote will help in some way. When I vote, my motivation is mostly the environment I see around me and how I want to see a change in it. And if any party is promising that there will be some change or issues that pertain to me will get fixed, or they have a solution for that, then that motivates me. But for a lot of people, unfortunately, that I've seen who are maybe not as well aware or educated as me, they vote simply because they see something that like a leader or someone that they feel like, oh, this person will save my life and my future. Constant promises that are never kept in check. There's no accountability. So that motivation to vote is just in those 1 or 2 months when a lot of pushing of agenda happens, and then you end up voting. Like I was recently reading on social media also about people from the rural community, farmers. They are saying things like, we don't know all of these things that you guys are talking about, like electoral bonds and all. We don't care about that. We just want water. We just want the basic amenities to reach us. Whoever will provide us, we'll vote according to that. So then voting behavior across the nation is very different. And sadly, a lot of people who are privileged, who are in the 1%, so to say, don't vote. They choose not to vote. But a lot of people in the lower strata of the society, they are pushed and forced to vote in a lot of ways. They are made promises that, oh, you'll get water, you'll get these amenities in the next 2 months. So they vote, and then never happens. Those leaders go up to them, talk to them as if they're their family members, and then after the voting, they don't even go back to that place to visit them or check whether those resources have reached them or not.
So dovetailing on what Chinmay said, even I was under the impression that after Nota is declared as the majority option, I used to think that the elections are recalled. But clearly this is an example of why we need more awareness on this. And like Tanushree said, my parents, very similar. My parents, they are from UP and Bihar, which are two of the most politically active states of the country. And they have seen regime changes throughout the years, and now they have come to a point where they are just complacent. They don't care if they vote or not, if there is a regime change or not, which is what motivates me further to vote, which is why I'll definitely cast my vote in the upcoming elections. That brings me to the final question. What does democracy mean to you?
Democracy is basically the ability that we should have to disagree to what is a popular opinion. And we should not be questioned, or we should not be charged against, for disagreeing or for dissent, basically, as you call it. So that's democracy. And obviously the ability to have, if you're electing people to the government, they are our voice. So if they are not fulfilling the promises that they have made, during their entire political campaigning before elections, then it is, we have the ability to actually, turn down the government completely. So that has to be there, which we have not got so far. So that's somehow wherein, our democracy is in danger, as we call it, because people who are against, as I mentioned earlier, they are not, their voices are not counted, or their opinions are not counted, or there are means or ways to just shut them down, or, declare their voices or their opinions as illegal. So that should not be there. If that's happening, then it's not democracy. So that's democracy.
Yeah, not only disregarded because they dissent and call certain words, also the fact that some if you're prominent enough that you're thrown into jail because you're dissenting and you're not, like, that's for me, even whatever strata or level of fame you have and how are you active in that voice, the fact that you can be thrown into jail with antiquated laws which are not changed, like the fact that these laws are very old and they are not very democratic in nature, and somehow have them in the roots to the colonial era of our history. So that also shows, that's also one of the needs, that even though it's not very student issue, but that's also a thing we notice and we feel like it's not that particular law is antiquated and it's not updated. So that's also one of the issues I feel, and it also goes into how democracy, for a thriving democracy, even if you are dissenting, you shouldn't be called names or thrown into jail if you're prominent.
I think whatever I read in my 8th grade textbook is not true. Like, that's for sure. Like, maybe I was naive enough to believe that, oh, okay, we are living in this country and we follow this system and then I'm just like, nothing is being followed. So, yeah, again, that whole theory and practical is totally different. So, for me right now, I think we we would be lying to ourselves if we call ourselves a fully functioning democracy, because that's not happening. For a basic one reason, that is lack of freedom. Equality comes later, but if you're not free to express yourself, to be who you are, to exist, and not being questioned upon, violated on basic human fundamental rights, if those are being questioned, which are the bedrock of democracy, if your rights are not being met, if your rights are constantly violated, and very smartly through the law also manufactured, you know you don't know also, if you're not aware enough as a citizen, that your laws are really affecting how you function on a day-to-day basis.
Like people don't get what democracy means and why it's important, because some WhatsApp uncles which we all have want कि हाँ कितनी तुम्हें freedom चाहिए, dictatorship में उनको चलता है उनका, because they are privileged, they feel चलेगा, but उनको भी harm करेगा, हमको ज़्यादा करेगा, उनसे ज़्यादा ही होने वाला है हम. But the meaning of democracy, why it's important, and the reason of whatever India's success has been achieved, how democracy played a part into it, that also should be looked, and how it keeps the system in check and how it prevents stagnancy. And so the meaning of democracy is also something I feel should be a general awareness that people just don't have.
Just adding to that, I've heard arguments nowadays which is alarming, and maybe I'll read up more on this, but people are coming up, younger people are coming up and saying that, maybe democracy is not the way for our country. Maybe that's not something that will work for India. So that's really alarming, because then, again, that whole dream that my civic book gave me will collapse. Then what am I looking forward to? And why wouldn't I go abroad and choose to stay in this nation and consider myself Indian and be proud of it?
I wanted to add that democracy to me is a state where you are not questioned and held accountable for for practicing and exercising your freedom of expression and speech. Rather, the reverse should happen, that is where the citizens question and hold the people in power accountable. So that is something, that is democracy to me.
I think we all have seen this trend in India at some point of our lives, that people in India have an unhealthy obsession with an autocratic figure. We tend to glamorize a dictator or an autocratic figure because they seem powerful, they seem cool, or whatnot. This is very alarming, and I think that in a functional democracy, it should not exist. Speaking of democracy, for me, for the longest time, I associated the word dissent with democracy. But I would like to make an addition to that, just like Chinmay said and just like Tanu said, that dissent should also come with the right, that I should not be shamed for my political choices. Just because my political choices differ from yours, my opinions differ from yours, doesn't give you the right to shame me. But it certainly should give me a right to defend myself. Yeah.
So everyone has quite touched upon the whole aspect of democracy and so on. So just to that, because as we are going to step in the industry now as filmmakers, as journalists, we are going to be the first. I don't know, it's so sad and unfortunate that as journalists we'll be targeted tomorrow, and we have been seen a pattern, so on so forth. So how do I question? When do I question? And if there is a certain pressing issue that I want to talk about or address, I'll be questioning each time I write something or each time I do something. So tomorrow if I'm making a documentary, so to say, something that is just my way of looking at something, that's just my perspective. If that also is somehow banned or is not, it doesn't reach people irrespective. So then in that way, then masses will then go to theaters and watch something that is going to keep, again, pushing the agenda, but something that as a filmmaker or as journalists and as just media professionals, in some way, how we want to keep some way that dying fire of democracy, in some way we want to keep it alive. How will that continue if quite a sad state of democracy in the country currently?
So with that, we have come to the end of our today's session. And we can safely say that Gen Z is ready for the dance of democracy. This was SCM Sophia. Thank you.